and welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today, I am so excited to share a super fun episode with you. I had the most delightful conversation with Mark Stephen Porro, or just Mark with a K, as you will find out, on his book about caregiving for his mother. I will let him tell the whole story. Obviously, he's going to do it better than I did, but he gave up his swinging bachelor lifestyle to go care for his Spitfire 90-plus-year-old mother during her final months on this earth. And with a lot of humor and a lot of fun and so much beautiful heart and love, he created just the most beautiful story to tell. As of the time of recording, I had not yet read his book. I since have now, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is such a fun read. It's beautiful and touching and funny and all the things. So please go check out his book. He'll talk more about that. There are links in the description. I'm just so excited for you to hear from him. But before we dive in, as always, if you would like to help support my show, please go to patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. For as little as $1 a month, you can help me to provide pro bono services in my community. Also, if you'd like to join the Good Grief Society, you can find a link to that down in the description, or you can also find that on my website, NikkiTheDeathDoula.com/podcast. There's some information there. It is a beautiful, soft place to land with your grief. No BS, no toxic positivity, just real, unfiltered grief support. We have monthly grief circles. I have speakers every other month. We have journaling activities and a private channel where everybody can communicate with each other. So please go check that out as well. But enough of that. Let's get into today's episode with Mark Stephen Porro. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in again this week for another great episode of my show. And I'm so excited to have another fun guest, super fun guest. We've barely chatted so far, but I can already tell he's going to be so much fun to talk to. This is Mark Stephen Porro. So Mark, would you mind introducing yourself to my listeners a little bit? Tell them a little bit about you and your book.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the synopsis, I guess the quick story. So I gave up my carefree bachelor life to become a first-time parent to a 90-year-old guilt-tripping, sharp-tongued, stubborn as all get out lady who could barely remember my name, and that was my mother. And it was unusual, I think, at that time, and still kind of for a son to take over 24/7 caregiving. But I jumped in with gusto to fill her last years with love, laughter, and joy. And not always perfect, but I came pretty damn close. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So,
All right. All right. So yeah, that's not something most men choose to do, or people in general. I feel like caregiving is one of those things nobody ever asks to be a caregiver. They're usually put in that position for one reason or another. And I've talked to many of them on my show, and very few have been men, which is kind of interesting in our society. It seems to be that the women are the ones that are taking care of our elders. So,
right.
how did that land for you, being thrust in that role that seems to be traditionally seen as something women would do?
Right. Well, in my family, there's 6 kids, 3 girls and 3 boys. I'm the fifth child,
Oh,
the
wow.
third son, and I've got one younger sister, 2 older sisters, and 2 older brothers. So I grew up with women in the family, and that was, I think, great. And my brothers were torturers, and so I grew up I guess, acquire a thick skin. And now I'm the tallest, and there's a payback coming.
Okay.
And part of that was the book because I expose a lot of stuff in the book and that they might not be all that happy about. Well, they're fine about it, but
Okay.
I did worry at one point. But I had a really good relationship with both of my folks, and I moved away from home. I went to college shortly after turning 18 and never really moved back home. So when my parents came out to visit me, first I went to the Ohio State University and then moved out to California. And so when they came out to visit, I had them one-on-one.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they came together, sometimes they came separately. And I got them to open up about things that they really didn't want to or didn't expect to. I was very curious,
Yeah.
and And at that point, I was also, I was originally an industrial designer, but then I went to Hollywood to do the actor thing. And so as I got more into acting, I got more curious about my family and the family relationships and all that stuff. So I got them to share things that I don't think they shared with the other kids.
Oh, wow.
And it was great because it really brought us closer together because we had some issues growing up. I don't think many with my mom, but with my dad, he could be a tough guy. And, um, and he was a strict Catholic and stuff like that. And so we had some periods where I was ignored, or maybe he just didn't like me at certain points. And I think he did that with all the kids. Maybe not the first child was my sister Laurel. I don't know if they ever had a falling out, but he had a falling out with all his kids. He
Oh,
had a falling
wow.
out with two of his brothers that lasted for decades.
Oh my gosh.
So he could be that, but he was a great guy. And
Yeah.
so we got to a certain point where I learned to appreciate him not only as my father, but as an adult, as a
Sure.
friend. And
Yeah.
that's when we really grew close.
Sure.
And with my mom, I think we were pretty good all along. And so again, growing up with sisters, I learned to do more than just put the toilet seat down. So I knew how to take care of hair, and I knew how to, I guess, be the romantic. My father was very much a gentleman, and and so when this thing happened with my, okay, so at the time I was still acting in Hollywood, but I had a snack food company that my brother and I started to honor my father. He passed at this point 14 years earlier than when
Okay.
the incident that started the journey of caregiving. And so I was in LA and I built a factory for it, and we had a national brand called Grandpa Poe's Originals. That was the original half pop popcorn snack that my dad invented. And we were the snack of the day in the Rachel Ray show and things like that. So we
Oh,
had national
wow.
distribution. It was a big deal. So that was most of my time was spent uh, uh, running that company. And then I get a call from my brother. Says our mother, who was living at the house we all grew up in at the time, just gave up, and she's now in bed in a semi-comatose
Oh,
state.
wow.
And the doctor cut off all meds and food and called hospice.
Hmm.
And when hospice comes, usually it's not a good ending. So we all flew home, and sure enough, this was about 9 days after her 89th birthday. I think she just kind of looked around at her life. She was physically still okay. She did suffer from some depression over the years, or maybe even early in her life, but she kept it pretty well hidden until her later years. Then I said she at times became an Archie Bunker, and it was just not all that pleasant to be around.
Hmm.
Um, but I think she just said, "This is if this is my life, I'm done." So she just, I think, willed herself to die. And
Yeah.
so when I got there, hospice was already on duty, and mom didn't talk. She barely opened her eyes. She did respond a little bit to touch, but we were ready to say goodbye. We had a
Yeah.
priest come in, give the last rites, and all that business.
Wow.
So my younger sister and I, we didn't know how long she was going to be here. So
Right.
we asked hospice to teach us how to take care of our mother because we wanted to do as much as we could for as long as she wanted to be here.
Yeah.
And so they taught us the tips and tricks and things like that, how to change the bedding with a hopeless patient in bed, how to change the diapers, how to deal with bed sores and things like that.
Hmm.
And I think my mom sensed that love was back in the house. And I have a chapter in the book. I think it was a cry for help because we had some people living in the house that were supposed to keep her company and do the shopping and cooking and stuff
Yeah.
for her, but they didn't like each other,
Mm.
and they hid it very well from all of us.
Hmm.
But my mom could be a tough cookie too, like my dad. And if I said she had a very accurate BS detector, and if
Oh.
that thing went off, it was tough getting her back. And I think it redlined with these people early on, and that was it. And so they
Yeah.
stayed away from each other. So my mother was left alone a lot, and yeah. So once this thing happened, she could no longer. She was bedridden, and I think it was about 3 weeks after. Again, no food, no medication, and they just let her transition. And
Yeah.
we found out that the hospice nurses very different. They like to prescribe their own medicine. So we had a directive from the supervisor saying
Mm.
no food, no medication, blah, blah, blah. And so this one nurse came in and she looks at the directive and then she walks right into my mother's room. She goes, Mrs. Porro, are you hungry? And it was like my mother's eyes shot open like a dinner bell rang. And this was 3 weeks in, no food that has, she
Yeah.
had no desire, no attempt, and no indication that she wanted anything. And this lady now looks at us and accuses us of starving our mother to death. So we were not happy, but
Yeah.
we did find out that these kind of things happen when some, the kids or relatives or whatever want them to go, they don't make it
Yeah.
too much.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, but we were not happy. So she went and called her supervisor. And the supervisor said, listen, you broke the rules. You go, you're dismissed. And a new nurse came in. But in the meantime, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are we in fact starving our mother to
Oh.
death? So I'm feeling really guilty. And I go into the room and I say, Mom, are you hungry? And she says, what do you got? And those were her first words in about 3 weeks. Her first
Oh.
words since this thing started. So I said, anything you want. She
Yeah.
goes, well, how about some pumpkin pie?
Ooh,
Well,
good choice.
yeah, but it's March.
Oh, oh, yeah.
It's not pumpkin pie season.
Yeah.
So I went into the living room. My brother, who lived locally, again, this was in New Jersey, and I'm from LA at this point. I said, if you want, please, do your best, find some pumpkin pies. He came back within 30 minutes with two fresh pumpkin pies. I don't know where he got them. I don't know if he baked them himself or what, but he came back. And then, so I give my mom a spoonful. Again, this is the first food in weeks. And
Yeah.
she spit it out. And I said, well, that didn't go so well. So I said, let's try it again. And the second spoonful went down great. And then she downed half the pie. And maybe it was a sugar rush or whatever, but she was back. She was awake. The color
Oh,
came back in her face, and
yeah.
she hit me with a little bit of a guilt trip. I knew she was back at this point because I had been away from, I hadn't come home for a while because she was this grumpy old lady at times.
Yeah.
So I stayed away. And so she looks at me and she goes, well, I haven't seen you in a long time. I went, yep, mom's back. So, and that might have been a little bit of the catalyst saying, okay, Mark has to step up and play a bigger role in her final years. And so,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so that's how it began.
Oh my. So she guilted you into it.
Well, not really, but
Yes, but no. I mean, you were already
yeah,
there. So,
yeah. So
wow. So after this turn, after she, she had the pumpkin pie, did her demeanor change a little bit toward you, or was she still kind of a little spitfire, shall we say?
Well, once in a while, not just with me, with other people, but no, she was great. She
Oh.
was very forgiving and taught me a lot of lessons about parenting. Because again, I never married, I had no children, and
Mhm.
this was my first kid, basically. Well, I didn't take on the full-time duty yet.
Right.
I stayed for a number of weeks until I knew she was on, let's say, on her way to full recovery, and hospice was going to be on duty. At least in New Jersey, when they're called, they stay on for 6 months if the patient
Yeah.
lasts that long. So
Yeah.
I knew that they were going to be on a couple more months. I had to go back to LA for work, and then I came back a few months later. One of her grandchildren was getting married to the Jersey Shore, so I took over duties again for a couple weeks and got her all dolled up for the wedding. And what I noticed, it's interesting. So I had my sisters, three sisters, and mom didn't look great. Her clothes were kind of awful. And she had these old tattered day dresses and no makeup, and her hair wasn't. At this point, it was very long. I grew up with her with usually having a perm, and her hair was very long again. And she was a cute little old lady. It was lovely, and but nobody was taking care of her hair. So
Hmm.
I would brush it and put it in a ponytail, or for bonus points, I would braid it. I learned how to braid it and stuff with my sisters. And her nails were like the crown jewel. She was a nail model in her late teens, early 20s.
Oh.
Those things I had to be very careful with. But I gave her a little lipstick and put
Yeah.
her in her lovely pink pantsuit. at
Yeah.
this wedding. At this point, she couldn't walk, so we had a wheelchair. And she was the belle of the ball. She had such a great time. It was her first outing at this point in 7 months.
Oh,
And
wow.
she looked great, she felt great, and she just really enjoyed this. And so I knew at that point that, again, I think I really had to step up. So I asked her if she wanted me to come and do this full time.
Hmm.
And she said yes. And so it's two things I said, okay, first of all, if I do this, we're going to have fun because that's just the way I roll. And I said, second, I will now be in charge and you must obey me. And her mood completely changed.
Oh, how'd that go?
Well, the smile on her face disappeared, but she did pucker up for a kiss. And I wasn't sure if that was a sign of surrender or one wishing me luck. And knowing my mom, it was kind of like, all right, let's see how this goes. So I gave her a kiss and hoped for the best. And it was it was it was overall really really good experience, and was very happy doing taking care of her and jumping into that role. And I have a motto that some people find corny, but it's really worked for me because I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life, and
Okay.
including moving to France without knowing the language. I was here for 5 days in 2015 in this little village where I live now, and fell in love with this village, and put an offer in this house, which is almost 500 years old, and and said, "This is where I'm going to live." And I moved here less than 2 years later,
Wow.
and no regrets, and it's just lovely. So anyway, my motto is find the joy. So that's what I lead with. I say I'm looking for the positive in any of these experiences, and with mom, one of my goals was to make her laugh at least once a day. Both of my folks were very funny, and my siblings luckily inherited some of that,
Oh,
and
good.
I did as well. And so humor played a big role in our family growing up, especially in difficult situations. And so that played a big role in this journey because it could be tough mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so, uh, and then she ended up making me laugh quite a bit too. So it
Oh,
was, she was, she had her moments, but she
yeah.
also was pretty good natured.
Good. So you wrote your book about your experience of caregiving with her. Where did you come up with the title? Like, because this is a unique title. Immediately, I can't wait to read this. But
Okay.
where did this stem from?
Well, mom at this point couldn't walk anymore. So she was bedridden for most of this. It was a 3.5 year journey. And I did get her up and walking at some point. Again, she was a tough cookie. So I said, listen, we're going to get you walking. What do you think? She goes, okay. And so I
Yay.
actually got her walking with me holding her just in case to steady her.
Sure.
But so we had to, since going to the bathroom was tough, a trip and a dangerous trip, we had to put a commode bedside.
Yeah.
And sometimes Mother Nature was a little uncomfortable waiting for Mother Nature to happen. So one of the days, as a joke, I said, "Would you like a cup of tea while we're waiting?" Because that was her favorite beverage. Cup of hot tea, skim milk, no sugar. And she said yes. And it was a hit. And so that became one of our morning rituals. And so as I was writing the book, I had another title in mind for a good part of it. And then when I came up with the chapter about some of the rituals that we came up with, a cup of tea in the commode seemed like a catchy title. So it's not only a practical thing, it's kind of a catchy title. So
I love
people,
it.
yeah,
I love
so
it.
that was it.
So, what's one of your favorite memories of that time period when you were with your mom?
Well, wow, there's a bunch of them. I'd have
I
to
I know I'm
say,
I'm being mean, making
yeah.
you pick one. You can pick a couple, but I don't like what are some of your favorite
I'll
experiences?
do some of the funny ones. So one of them
Okay.
is I would give her a bath, a sponge bath in the morning and evenings. I didn't want my mother to smell like an old lady and stuff. So, um, and it was quite a ritual to get her ready for bed at night. So she's on the commode, and I'm wiping her butt several times a day. And then I get her on the bed, and I would, finish the sponge bath, and then get the diaper on, and then get her into her pajamas. And so, and baby powder, and if she had any medical things I had to take care of, I took care of that. So it's a bit of a ritual. And then Right when I'm about to close the diaper, she starts peeing on me. Now, if you're a new parent with a newborn child, that's cute. Not when it's your 90-year-old mother peeing. And I'm going, Mom, why now? Because I had to start all over again.
Oh,
And she looks at me and
oh,
she goes, it's natural. So I'm like, how can I be mad? I mean, it's not, she had no control at that point of any of her
oh,
bodily functions.
bless.
Uh, and there was another time where, well, there's several, but there was, so she would normally get up around 10 in the morning. And I would usually be up late or not sleeping well because even though she's in bed and at that point she had a hospital bed and she's safe, she's not going to get out of bed or anything, you're still not sure when you wake up if she's going to be alive. You know,
Right,
so it's
right.
always on your mind. I actually put a baby monitor in her room with a
Mhm.
video camera. And this woman was a night owl. She was a proofreader for the largest newspaper in New Jersey for 30 years.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and she worked the night shift. So she was a night owl, and I'm a night owl. But I would be up watching that little monitor, and this woman would be having conversations with somebody. She would be fidgeting, and
Yeah.
I'm like, this is better than anything on TV. You know, I don't know who she was talking to, but
Yeah.
it was great. It was like fascinating. But I said I
Oh my
would have gotten
gosh.
more sleep if I just stayed in her room than watching on this little monitor.
Yeah.
Um, but one morning, so every once in a while, she'd wake me up early. And then, of course, you fly down the steps wondering, if this is an emergency. So the first time it happened was about 6 in the morning. And I hear, Mark, Mark. And I fly out of bed, fly downstairs. And I go in there. She goes, oh, so you are here. I said, of course I'm here. Where else am I going to be? She goes, okay, just checking. I said, can you check a couple hours later next time? And I put my heart back in my chest and went back to
Oh my
bed.
gosh.
Another time, I'm up in bed and I hear a little bell ringing. And I'm like, what is this? So I go down, I get into her room, and she's sitting in bed with the little, like Queen Elizabeth pose with a little brass bell between her fingers. And I'm like, don't tell me you just rang that to summon me. She goes, of course. Why not? I said, because I am your son. I'm here out of love, not duty. So put that bell away. Where the heck did she get the bell? I have no idea.
She
It's the first time
manifested a bell out of thin air.
somebody snuck that in there. Anyway, so I took the bell away and and there was another time she said, "Why do you treat me so well?" And maybe it was the bell. I said, "Because you're my mother and you should be treated like a queen." And then she burped. And I said, but queens don't do that. And she says, how do you know?
Oh,
And I'm like, yeah,
fair enough. Fair
of
point.
course they do.
Fair
So
point. Everybody burps, everybody farts.
yeah, well, there's another one of those too,
Oh
where I
God.
was again cleaning up and I called the no-fly zone and she
Yeah.
lets loose with one. I said, Mom, she goes, sorry.
Aw.
I said, not nice, not nice.
Bless. She couldn't
Uh,
help it.
Right. And so I think the one thing where I could have taken it personally, but again I didn't. I think because of the approach I took. I went in there one morning, and this is probably at least 3 months in. Again, I'm wiping her butt at least twice a day, and and I get in there, and looks at me, and she goes, "Now, what is it I call you?" And I say, "You're kidding, right?" She goes, "No." I said, "Name your children." She goes, "Laurel, Michael, Carol, David, Deesey." And stumped. I said, Mark. She goes, oh, Mark. Mark with a K? I said, yeah, you named me. I'm your favorite son. And she says, I don't have favorites. And I
Oh.
said, you have a favorite to forget. And so instead of getting mad, I
Yeah.
wrote my name on a piece of paper in big block letters, Mark, and taped it to the ceiling. So
Okay.
when I would go in the morning, I'd say, good morning. And she would look up in the ceiling for the visual aid and come back and very proudly go, good morning, Mark.
Aw.
So after a while, we didn't need that anymore, but it
Yeah.
became a game where I'd say, you cheated. She goes, no, I didn't. I said, what's my name? She had no idea. So we just played around, kind of had fun because, she's still your mother. She's not as
Yeah.
sharp as she used to be, and there's a little slower and more fragile and all that business.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gotta kind of roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you if you were to give advice to somebody who might end up in your situation or is in your situation, what's like the number one thing you would say to somebody who now is caregiving for an elder parent on their own?
Well, on a serious note, I would say do what the pros do, and they say take breaks. The caregiver's got to be in good shape,
Yes,
and
amen.
there's a reason on the airplane where they say put your oxygen mask on first,
Yes.
um, but not before an emergency. Rip it down, just hey, let's have fun. Um,
Yeah, when there's
because
an emergency.
when my sister and I were helping with hospice, we always took breaks. It was
Good.
going back to our hometown, so we went out and took walks and things like that. When I took this over, I said, "I'm a guy, I can handle this." And while I was there, I also renovated her house because she was like a child, so she slept many hours during the day.
Sure.
And so I built the first floor I did was the basement, and I put a man cave in there. I knew I needed to be. I always kept in good shape anyway, but I put in a rowing machine and I bought weights and things like that. I knew I needed stress relief,
Yeah.
but I still didn't take proper breaks.
Okay.
And my mom almost outlived me. I had to go through some major surgeries
Oh my.
during this journey because I didn't take the breaks. So I would say, please do that. You must
Yeah.
take the breaks. The second thing I would say, if you're not comfortable doing any part of this, don't do it. You don't want your loved one to feel guilty or feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
you were put in an awkward position. So I was fortunate because there was no line that I did not cross. And as you read the book, you'll find some funny chapters about that. But I was willing to do it. But also, I think my acting training came in because I said, I'm playing the role of caregiver. So I can't let this relationship son mother get in the way because I'm seeing my mother naked for the first time, and she's
Hmm.
89 years old,
Yeah.
and that was a bit shocking. You're
Yeah.
seeing what gravity and what the years have done to her and things like that, and it's not pretty. But I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable with my
Sure.
uncomfortableness, so I hid it,
Yeah.
kept it out of the room as best I could. Once in a
Yeah.
while, we had moments where, I would get angry or she would get angry, and we had to deal with that. But I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable, and she was pretty open with, like, do whatever you got to do. There was no like, oh, I don't want you doing this, look away. It was like,
Right. Right.
pretty much I'm the queen, do it, baby,
Yeah.
take care of me.
Yeah.
So she did like being pampered a bit. So I would say that those are the two main things. And just being present is great. So if you
Yeah.
have a professional there and you're there being the relative, the son, the daughter,
Yeah.
or whatever, the spouse, let them know that you're there and you care,
Yeah.
and that should be fine. And because we had, out of the six of us, we had two that did not do any hands-on, and that was
Wow.
great. They helped in other ways. They were not comfortable doing it, and I was very comfortable, and my younger sister was comfortable, and the two older siblings. My one brother who lived locally, he would still come every Tuesday to cook dinner and mess up the kitchen and then get mom ready for bed at night, which was great. So if I needed him to step in, which he did when I had these emergencies,
Yeah.
um, he was still in good practice to do that.
Yeah. Those are
Not
all
with the same, yeah, not with the same tender loving care, I must say, but
well,
you got the job done.
nobody is big black letters Mark. So
That's right. That's
those
right.
are all like all things I would say too, especially the giving. I work with so many caregivers of people who, sons, daughters of people who are dying, and they just will not take a break. And
Yeah.
they just don't get it. I'm like, until they finally do burn out and they crash and burn, I'm like,
Yeah.
you need to take care of yourself. So
There's a
kudos to you for
there's
doing
a,
that.
it's a very high percentage of caregivers that die before their patients.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 30 something percent,
Yeah.
something crazy.
Yeah.
So yes, listen to the pros. And when I had those, we had to get somebody to do the heavy lifting after I went through my medical stuff. And she was a pro, and
Mhm.
she took Sunday off every day. She had her own apartment. She stayed with us in 6 of the nights.
Yeah.
Sunday, she had her own apartment and her own
Yeah.
thing. So we would
Good.
take her home, drop her off, pick her up on Monday
Yeah.
morning because she was a pro. She knew what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
important. There's a reason
yeah,
why people take breaks. So, yeah. And even if it's like you said, you put in a man cave and everything, and that's great if you've got something in the house, but you still need to physically separate yourself from that
yeah,
entire environment for
yeah,
a chunk of time, or it's just not really going to be effective. So,
right.
as we're getting towards the end of the episode, are there any other like fun stories or anecdotes or things you really want to share with my listeners about either
Yeah.
caregiving or your story specifically?
Okay, so when I got back there again, when I talked about my mom's hair didn't look good and the clothes were horrible and stuff like
Yeah.
that, so I felt that her dignity was kind of whittled away.
Hmm.
Not kind of, definitely.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did is say, I'm going to buy mom a new wardrobe.
Oh,
And I said, you want to cheer anybody up at any age, a new wardrobe will do it. So I bought her
amen.
some really nice day dresses in like a powder blue and a nice pink, and one of them, I say, dare I say, sexy black. And yes, and she loved them and they looked great. Also, my mother, because she worked full time and she had 6 kids, um, uh, she would only she would go to the beauty parlor once a week for a
Hmm.
shampoo and set and had her nails done, and
Yeah.
that was her treat. And when she would come out to visit me in L.A., I took her to my friend's salon in Beverly Hills for the movie star treatment,
Ooh.
and I knew she loved that.
Yeah.
But I don't know at this point, the last time she went to a beauty salon, the last time anybody really took care of her. So
Yeah.
I created a thing I call Day of Beauty to try to recreate the salon treatment at home.
I love
Uh,
that.
so one Day of Beauty, and this is something I hope it spreads because I think it's a really cool thing, and I'll tell you why when I finish.
Yeah.
So normally I give the sponge baths morning and evening,
Hmm.
but on Day of Beauty. While she was on the commode, I would soak her feet in Epsom salts. I would shampoo and rinse her hair, and then when she was finished, I would give her a full body massage, and again dealt with any medical things if she
Hmm.
had any issues, and then a new diaper, and then she picked out her new wardrobe, and then I got her up. It's another ritual we came up with. Again, we take a lot of things for granted. Older people, especially when they're in bed, they want a hug and you can't
Yeah.
hug them.
Yeah.
And it's painful sometimes because they're fragile. So
Yeah.
in between getting my mom ready, I would stand her up before putting her in the wheelchair. And we came up with, I said, morning hug. So we would hug, and it was beautiful because neither one of us wanted to let go. It was just a lovely thing. And so then I get her in the wheelchair, and then I would blow dry her hair and put it either in a ponytail or braid it.
Hmm.
And then I did her nails, very careful with the nails again. And then I give her a little lipstick to match the nail. So she had bright
Yeah.
red lipstick, bright red nails. And I thought this is just a nice thing, no big deal.
Yeah.
So as I wheel her into the kitchen for breakfast, and I cooked all the meals and stuff, I tried to make very healthy meals and stuff. We had a big mirror in the dining room. So I parked her in front of that mirror, and she's just beaming at her reflection. And I leaned in and I said, "Who is that pretty girl?" And it was just the look on her face. That's the thing. It was profound. The
Yeah.
power of that little gesture, and
Yeah.
it probably did more for me than it did for her, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I parked her in front of that mirror every day
Yeah.
and leaned in and said, "Who's that pretty girl?" Because wanting to feel pretty does not fade with age.
No,
And
it does
that
not.
was another lesson that I really learned. And
Yeah.
so she loved that I cared
Yeah.
enough to do that. And it was infectious. Everybody that saw her saw how pretty, I guess, she looked, and certainly how she
Yeah.
felt. And it was really very, very cool. And sometimes you don't know because I have 5 siblings, right? We did a virtual author visit with the public library in the hometown I grew up in.
Oh,
And
wow.
so my oldest sister was part of that. And I didn't, because I couldn't see who was on the thing, but she
Yeah.
was there. And it was really lovely to hear how she felt with me taking this job over. Because she
Hmm.
says we were amazed that this guy seemed to really like this because she told me that she could not find the joy. She goes, I don't know how you found the joy, but
Oh,
she says, she had a limit. She did it as a dutiful daughter, but she was not all that excited about
yeah,
doing it.
yeah,
And so it was lovely to hear her support. And this was years later, just to say, oh my gosh, yeah, we were all so happy that this guy took it on and he thrived in it, and mom would really thrived with all the attention and stuff like that. So that was certainly a good feeling to know that they were got a big kick out of it.
yeah. And thank you for bringing that up. I see so much in what I do working with people at end of life, and we take for granted that people still want to look nice and feel nice because we think, oh, well, they're just in bed all the time. Well, no, maybe they just want to be in their pajamas, but they might not want that. I
Right.
would, for the record, just leave me in my pajamas, change them every now and then, but I'm down with sweatpants. But some people are not like that. Some people want their nails done. So that's a
Mhm.
conversation I always have with clients I work with, is if that's something that's
And
important to them, I want to make sure that's maintained.
And I would say that with men as well.
Yeah, exactly.
2 days before my dad passed, my dad was always clean shaven and always had his hair neatly combed. He had
Yeah.
a comb, I think, in his wallet. And he
Hmm.
was very religious, so we knew that he wanted to look his best when he met with
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So my younger sister and I, we gave him a clean shave and combed his hair, and same
Yeah.
thing, he wanted to feel good.
Yeah.
And I knew he really appreciated that as well.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah. So,
And yeah, my dad's very similar, and my mom passed away last year, so it will be me. I'm the only one left, so it will be me to care for him when he gets older. And I know he loves to be clean shaven, so I'm gonna have to learn how to shave.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Or
but
get an
I will.
electric one to be safe.
Yeah, that's what he uses now, so that's fine. I'll just have to
Okay,
practice on
good.
my husband or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, well, thank you so much for sharing your story. So I have a little tradition on at the end of all my episodes where I pull a random card from the death deck, which I don't know if you're familiar with the death deck. These are
I'm
just
not.
conversation starter questions all around death and dying. So I'm going to pull one at random and I will
Okay.
read it and I will let you answer it and then I will answer it because fair's fair. So, oh, this one's quick and simple. Describe what the word death means to you.
Wow. Well, normally you would say it's a goodbye. Um, but I think in my situation, it would have been, I was with both of my parents when they died, when they took their last breath. And it was a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
So it wasn't a negative thing, and mainly because we didn't leave anything, I think, unsaid, and they were surrounded by love, and they were both in their beds in their room in the house that we all grew up in. And so death for me was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Oh, and I have to answer.
I hope mine is and as Woody Allen says, I hope I'm not there when it happens, but I
Oh,
hope mine is beautiful.
yeah, I forgot about that Woody Allen quote. Death to me is a transition, much like birth is. So I'm not going to say I know what happens or even have a good feeling of what happens after, but I do believe it's not the end. I don't think it's
Yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah,
So
I hope
that's
so.
death
Yeah,
is a
yeah. Well, I
transition.
make yeah goodbye in the physical form, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because when I get to talk about this book and my mom, I keep her in the present. So
Yeah.
it's not really a goodbye, and she keeps teaching. I think
Yeah.
hopefully she taught me a lot, and I hope through this she's also teaching other people.
Yeah.
Um, and
So
maybe
then
one of the
as we wrap up, please tell my listeners where they can about your book, where they can find that, where they can find you, and anything else you want to throw out there.
they could find me in the south of France.
I know
I
they cannot find you unless they're in the
yeah.
south of France in a remote village, I guess.
If they Google a cup of tea on the Commode, we're everywhere. I mean, the book is in on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I think any online and a lot of brick and mortar bookstores around the world, which is very cool.
Yeah.
So it's an ebook, paperback, large print paperback, and the audio book. I recorded the audio book as well, and I have a YouTube channel, A Cup of Tea in the Commode. It's a lot of funny little videos on there, like
Oh,
170 little
I'm gonna have
videos.
to go find that.
We have everything from TikTok to Facebook to Insta. I'm on all that stuff, which is great. But if they want to get a good kick, you go to the website, which is cupofteeonthecommode.org. And there's a fun section called bonus material that will make more sense once you read the book.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of things in the book that I mentioned that I have either photos of or some of the poetry or even the documentary that I mentioned in the book of my dad and my trip to Italy way back when to
Oh,
clear
wow.
the family name. And
Okay,
so
now
that
I'm excited.
there's a lot of there's a lot of fun stuff there. So yeah, so I'm easy. And then if they want to contact me directly, it's a cup of tea at the Commode at gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark. This was lovely. I had such a great, I knew it would be a fun conversation, and it sure was. It's been a while since I've had a deep belly laugh on this show. So thank you so much.
Oh, good. My and my mother's pleasure.
Awesome. All right. All right. Another huge thank you and shout out to Mark for being on my show. Please go check out his book. I've got links to his website and his YouTube channel in the description below. I've also linked to his book on my website. If you go to nikkithedeathdoula.com/podcast, his book is there. You can also find the link to that on his website, but please get yourself a copy. So much fun. If your library doesn't have it, start petitioning every library to get copies of it as well. I'm always big on using the library when you can. They support authors as well. So thank you again so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please, super quick, free, simple thing you can do is leave me a 5-star rating and write a little review to tell me how much you like my show. It's not really me, like, yes, I see them, but it's if the more people that leave positive reviews and write actual like reviews out on Apple Podcasts, the more people will see my podcast, and hopefully I can help more people feel a little less alone in their grief. That's all I do this for. It's a labor of love. I don't make $1 on this show. So please go out and do that for me. If you want to provide further support, you can go to patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula and support me there, or join the Good Grief Society. It's a beautiful place to not only support me, but also get some help and comfort and care and meet some other like-minded people, all in their grief in one beautiful place. All right, that is all. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Thank you. As always, remember, your grief is yours, your feelings are valid, and grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.